The correct selection of a weapon for both Jedi and Sith were a very important decision for both factions and their members to decide on. Having the lightsaber as the primary weapon for both factions, this allowed them to achieve things that other people simply couldn't. As good as one may be with the Force, the lightsaber was an incredibly deadly, effective, and reliable weapon, as well as being a tool which could instill fear in somebody without it even being ignited. Sabers, although traditionally being a simple single blade, varied greatly in design and form factor, and in this video I'm going to break down every single type of lightsaber ever created, even those wielded by only a single person. So smash that subscribe button, check out the Star Force 1 Discord in the pinned comment and description down below, and let's get into it. Number 1. The single-bladed lightsaber. The standard form of lightsaber existing for thousands of years, these were the most widely used by both the Jedi and the Sith. Despite them being the norm and existing the longest, they were still able to be used in devastating ways, with 7 traditional lightsaber forms being developed to ensure flexibility in combat, allowing for the simple-looking blade to be used for many different goals, whether it be defending against lightsaber wielders, soldiers with blasters, or doing an all-out assault fueled by one's negative emotions. Despite developments leading to the creation of the other lightsaber types, this remained a heavily used form even after the fall of the Jedi Order, due not only to its long history of dependability, but also its entry-level difficulty, making it easy for new Jedi to learn rapidly. Some of the most recognized wielders were Luke Skywalker and his father Anakin, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Qui-Gon Jinn. Number 2. The double-bladed lightsaber. A very frequently used variation of lightsaber, this was an extended hilt which had 2 emitters, one on either end, allowing for 2 blades activated through separate buttons. These were an incredibly deadly type of weapon, because to a single-bladed warrior it meant that they needed to keep their mind on 2 threats at once. Thanks to their flexible nature, they could also be used as a single-bladed saber with a larger hilt, enabling them to dish out more powerful strikes. These weapons were harder to master due to the immense coordination needed to make every move count, but for one who was able to master their immense potential, it was one of the deadliest and most powerful weapons accessible to the Jedi or Sith. Some notable users of this weapon were Darth Maul and his brother Savage Opress. Number 3. The sickle-bladed lightsaber. This was a fascinating saber known only through legend. Old tales spoke of a Sith Lord named Noctis who had travelled to Exegol searching for power, only to find a cruel and twisted end. Noctis was shrouded in a dark cloak and was only identifiable through his bright red bent saber resembling a scimitar or a sickle. Number 4. Great lightsaber. Also known as the Light Club, this was an oversized type of lightsaber designed especially for larger framed individuals. Their heavier hilts, more powerful blades, and inherent strength of their users made this far more powerful than regular lightsabers. Their size made it challenging for normal size or smaller species to effectively wield them, meaning they were very rare. Number 5. The hinged double-bladed lightsaber. A variant of the regular double-bladed saber, these had retractable hilts which could click together to form a 2-pronged or one-directional saber, but could also unfold to form a double-bladed saber. This multifunctional approach allowed it to be easily carried on a wielder's belt, as well as providing a unique opportunity for single-bladed combat since each part of the weapon could be turned on separately. This essentially meant that the user had 3 different saber types available to them, able to change them from one to another in under a moment's notice. Some Jedi Temple guards used this type of lightsaber, but its most notable users were Pong Krell, the rogue Jedi General, as well as Darkside Rey. Number 6. The lightsaber rifle. This was an incredibly unique design which took the form factor of a regular rifle and modified it to use lightsabers as the energy. That's right, it took a lightsaber and used its immense power to create a huge laser beam so powerful that despite blocking with his lightsaber, a direct hit from one of these weapons knocked him to the ground and burned a massive hole in the wall. As far as we know, this was originally created by Joe Costa Nu, but one was later found in an old Jedi outpost by Luke Skywalker and Ben Solo. Number 7. The Tag Proto-Saber. A gauntlet which emitted a powerful beam of plasma, this was a limitation of a lightsaber which, instead of being powered by the traditional Kyber crystal, required an external power pack to fuel its usage. Number 8. The Curved Hilt Saber. Specially designed to excel at dueling against other lightsaber users, this was a type of lightsaber used only by expert combatants or those who sought greater fluidity in their movements. The most well-known user of this weapon was Count Dooku, the infamous Jedi Master who fell to the dark side of the Force and became a Sith Lord, and he also trained his apprentice Asajj Ventress to use these hilts as well. Number 9. The Lightsaber Pike. These were a variant of saber which came in multiple styles. The basic version was a simple retractable double-bladed saber staff which emitted yellow beams when ignited. There were single-bladed variants which contained very long hilts, but these weren't as common. The first variant was very common among the Jedi Temple guards. Number 10. The Shodo Lightsaber. These were downsized variations of the lightsaber which had smaller hilts and shorter blades. They could be used in a few different ways, with the primary use case being Jedi Knights and Masters who had a smaller stature and thus found it easier to wield a smaller weapon, such as Evan Peel and Grandmaster Yoda. However, these could also be used as a secondary weapon by those who chose to wield single-bladed lightsabers, such as Ahsoka Tano and the 10th Brother. Number 11, the Far Killer. Very similar in nature to the lightsaber rifle, this used that initial blueprint but amped it up to about 100. This was a sniper rifle which harnessed lightsaber technology to make incredibly powerful shots, capable of taking out targets from unbelievable distances. Its creators, two Jedi Knights known as Var Will and Ub, were kicked out of the Jedi Order entirely due to creating this weapon, and within a decade of their apostasy, they were hunted down and purged. Quite a hardcore punishment, and it goes to show you how terrible and shameful this weapon was in the eyes of the Jedi Order. Number 12, the Guard Shoto. Also known as a Tonfa, this was a variant of Shoto Saber which had its hilt connected to a handlebar at a 90-degree angle. This allowed it to be swiftly rotated, letting its wielder change stance and tactic in an instant. Number 13, the Flicker Phase Lightsaber. Another weapon considered dishonorable by the Jedi Order, this was a modified lightsaber which programmed its blade to switch on and off at random times, making it very hard to wield comfortably, but almost impossible to defend against. Due to the negative sentiment, however, they were never widely adopted. Number 14, the double-bladed spinning lightsaber. These were a form of lightsaber used exclusively by dark-side users and almost always were employed by members of the Inquisitorius, a group of dark-side Force sensitives gathered to do Darth Vader's bidding and help him to hunt survivors of Order 66. The ability to make the blade spin was not only used to look cool or threaten opponents, but there was also an activation of a repulsor lift through this spinning which allowed for levitation through the air. Number 15, the Broad Saber. This was a uniquely crafted form of saber which generated a broader blade resembling that of a greatsword in real life. Due to its flat and wide surface, it was very good with Form 1 Shi-Cho, although it struggled with other forms due to its proportions. Number 16, the Saber Cane. Only two of these are known to have ever existed, though it's safe to assume that they were fairly common among the elderly members of the Order. This was a lightsaber whose hilt connected to a long and sturdy cane so that it could not only function as a weapon but also a travelling device. Terra Sunube was the only Jedi we've ever seen with one of these, and Maul used it at the time of Emperor Sidious's reign. Number 17, the Crossguard Lightsaber. An ancient design utilizing 3 blades, this was primarily designed to prevent an opponent from moving their blade down during a saber lock and slicing off one's hands. However, the crossguard could also be used offensively, as Kylo Ren showcased against Finn. This was a variant used throughout the ages, with Jedi Master Stellan Gios from the High Republic, 3 centuries before the Battle of Yavin, Cal Kestis, as well as the lieutenants of the Bedlam Raiders during the reign of the Galactic Empire, and of course Kylo Ren, Supreme Leader of the First Order, all having used this saber, spanning almost half a millennia of usage. Number 18, the Light Whip. Though the hilt of these was the same as a regular one, they used multiple small crystals to emit a flexible long blade which was used like a whip by its wielder. Number 19, the Dual Phase Lightsaber. These were lightsabers which contained multiple kyber crystals which allowed the length of the blade to be changed on the fly. Darth Vader is the most notorious example of this, and by the way, this is the story in canon, but the truth is it's adding some lore to flesh out the real life errors. The truth is that the VFX was in its infancy back when the original trilogy was made, so the length of Vader's animated blade kept changing, leading to this lore being added, but I think that's really cool. And personally, I love lore that explains real life stuff. So this was also used by the Jedi Knight Kanan Jarrus, who utilized his second crystal to enter a training mode to teach his Padawan Ezra Bridger the ways of lightsaber combat. Number 20, the Darksaber. This was a one-of-a-kind weapon resembling a real sword like a katana more than a traditional lightsaber. It was created by Tar Vizsla, a Mandalorian who carefully walked the paths of both the Mandalorians and the Jedi, taking both of their cultures and religions, becoming the first ever Mandalorian Jedi. The Darksaber has a very long history spanning from 1,000 years before the fall of the Jedi to the hunting of the Empire's remnants in the Mandalorian show. Number 21, the Lightsaber Blaster. This was a very innovative lightsaber designed by Padawan Ezra Bridger, featuring 2 modes, one for blasting and one for lightsaber combat. These modes could be swapped in rapid succession, as seen when Ezra's master Kanan Jarrus used his apprentice's weapon when fighting the Grand Inquisitor. Number 22, Exar Kun's Lightsaber. Almost nothing is known about this weapon in canon, however we do know that it's the earliest recorded use of a double-bladed lightsaber, meaning that Exar Kun himself likely created it when he fell to the dark side. Number 23, the Light Foil. A smaller saber than standard models, this was one-hand-only plasma dueling blade which arose due to the increased usage of Makashi, a saber versus saber form of combat. The one-handed nature of the weapon meant that it resembled a form of fencing, with its movements being extremely nimble and smooth. It allowed for a pinpoint precision, much like the later developed curved hilt lightsabers. Although these fell out of favour in the Jedi Order thanks to the rising popularity of Shoto sabers, they remained used by saber rakes in the Tapani sector, a group of nobles passionate about dueling. Number 24, Training Lightsaber. This was a form of non-lethal lightsaber used by the younglings of the Jedi Order, who were given them to learn the basics of lightsaber combat and the various lightsaber forms. They would make use of these training sabers until they earned permission to go on the Gathering, a ritual which resulted in them creating their own fully functional and operational lightsaber. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed that list of every single lightsaber we know in canon. If you want more every single type lists like this, hit that subscribe button, leave a like on the video, and join the Star Force 1 Discord server, and I'll see you in the next video.